Alright, so Daniel Cormier made this video on his YouTube channel. Now, I want to say this before we begin anything he uploaded this yesterday. Whatever I say jokingly about him or any other fighter, this is purely entertainment. I treat YouTube like it's WWE. But he does say a lot of things in here that I do think need to be shared more, and it says a lot coming from a guy who, John Jones, let's face it, held him back. And without John Jones, we're probably looking at the GOAT right there. But yeah, he lost to Stipe when he was older, but man, Daniel Cormier in his prime was an absolute animal. Again, went undefeated in heavyweight, undefeated in light heavyweight, except for those two fights with John Jones, one overturned. But I'm rambling. Let's save that for later. Come on.
We saw the first renderings of what the UFC is going to look like at the White House, and it looked insane. The fact that we're actually doing a UFC at the White House is the craziest thing
Which,
of all time. And honestly, like we talked about before, only
okay, are you? Oh, it's gonna be one of those days, computer. I did see the renderings of the White House. Um, octagon, whatever you want to call it. I think I made it short on it. I'm not too sure. I might make a video on that. Well, yeah, I guess we got what I forgot who's fighting this week, to be honest. Um, but we'll have time to do that. Oh,
President Trump and Dana White could make something like this happen, because otherwise it would be just a ridiculous thought. But honestly, ridiculous thoughts work. But not only are we going to the White House, we also have an idea of who may be fighting at the White House. So today's episode is brought to you by Total Wireless, the official wireless provider of UFC. They're in your corner with unlimited 5G data that will not slow you down. So we're going to the White House in July. 4th of July, Independence Day. You know, for a long time, we spoke about Noche UFC and how it was a great ode to the Hispanic culture, the Mexican culture. It's been and become one of the greatest events in the UFC's yearly calendar. I always question, why don't we tip our hat to the United States of America? That feels like what we're going to do when we get to the White House.
come on. So he's about to go on more than one. I want you guys to hear the last bit here. But absolutely, that is something I actually said in my uh reaction to the Paris card was, when you have your guys go undefeated in their region, that is big. A lot of them got knockout wins, submission wins. That builds a bunch of fighters where when you go back to the UK, you can build a card around the UK, and I feel like that is something that the UFC in 2025 has really lacked, is that when you go and look at the old days, like all the way from UFC 1 to say, I'd say UFC 200, they would always go, no matter what city, what country, what province, state, whatever it may be, they would make sure they would have people from that region. They would have a lot of people there who deserved to be in the fight that they were in. And if they didn't, a lot of those guys would come, show up, put everything on the line, and win or lose, you leave the fight like, wow, I did not expect him to do that well. Man, I wonder what his next fight will be. But I hope in the Paramount era they do go back to it. Well, it looks like they're going back to it. DC is saying it, but yeah, that's just an opinion I've had for the last few years, really.
Next July. But then I hear Conor McGregor is going to fight against Michael Chandler as one of the fights. I have spoken about Michael Chandler versus Conor McGregor for so long because it's supposed to happen 2 years ago. Conor McGregor has been kind of pulling our chain, leading us along as if he's going to come back when it doesn't feel like he has any intention on truly coming back and fighting in the UFC. But if he does, Michael Chandler would be the opponent. I was speaking to Sean Shelby the other day at Noche UFC, and one of the younger guys had called out Michael Chandler.
All right, so we're gonna have to listen to that one. I have an opinion on the guy that called out Chandler. I forgot his name, but like you look at the whole saga with Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler, Conor McGregor himself, and I feel it's so fitting that we're talking about him and John Jones. We usually do it in the same video, but like with Conor McGregor, this is no longer about, oh, I want fans to cheer for me at the fight. This is no longer, oh, I don't really need to do this. He has enough money, but that lawsuit tarnished his reputation. That is why he started getting so active in BKFC. That is why he started training so hard for this White House card. Because this White House card will be one of the biggest opportunities, not only in MMA, but in media as a whole, to be showcased, to be promoted. I'm at a point now where if Conor versus Chandler happens at the White House card, I wanted to. I think it's an interesting fight. I would love to see it. If it happens, it happens. But when it comes to John Jones coming back, after giving the belt to Tom Aspinall and being like, okay, no, I want it back. I want it back. Give me a fight. I want the Tom Aspinall fight. I did not say anything before about not wanting to fight Tom Aspinall. I want to fight for the belt, which I had, and I didn't want to fight the now champion for. It's a different conversation, and Dana White has been saying that time and time again recently.
And I said to Sean, I go, I don't think Chandler would do it. He goes, no, he goes, Chandler wants only big things. I believe that that would qualify as the type of big thing that Michael Chandler would want to be a part of. Not only the fact that he's probably one of the most patriotic human beings I've ever met in my entire life, but to finally get to fight McGregor, to get to do it at the White House, to be a part of something historic, you know that Chandler would be all in on that. When it comes to the matchup, you guys know what I feel. I feel like if there is a matchup for Conor McGregor to come back to, it is this one because Chandler will be more than
Yeah.
willing.
And I agree. I think that Chandler, he's a fighter that checks all of the boxes, and I would really say the only other fight that would make sense for Conor right now, maybe Oliveira, because I think Oliveira coming off of that knockout loss, you have a bit of doubt with whether he'll be the same. And he's a former champion at lightweight. It would be a really big win for Conor to come back and get. But with Michael Chandler, you have the safety of, well, he's no longer a top ranked guy. He is a big name. He'll be a big name regardless. But if he beats Conor, we can move Chandler back into the top. If Conor beats him, we have a way to push Conor into the top. Or if it's a one time thing, we made our money. Woohoo, let's go.
To stand in the pocket and fight McGregor. And obviously, we know when people do that, we know what happens. Conor McGregor has been very,
That's
very
true, yeah. And
successful against guys that.
so talking DC, what a beautiful pause there. Let's see, where is my other all right, trying to go to Florida 410. This is around where he starts talking about John Jones, which, is the meat and potatoes of this video. And I just want to say this before we, you know, watch what Daniel says. Again, look at it from the perspective of DC. This is a guy that tarnished your career, that took away your title, and each time you fought him, there was an asterisk apart. Well, no, even the first. John Jones won the first fight quite away. I'm going to stand by that. But it still was a close competitive fight, one of the best fights we've ever had. And now DC's doing well for himself. John Jones, he's out in Thailand most of the time now. But let's listen to this and really let it sink in.
Most telling thing to me though is like Conor McGregor has not fought since 2022 when he broke his leg, or 21 or something. John Jones has John Jones has stated publicly he wants to fight at the White House. He tells anyone that'll listen. Even last week he was at the Grammys or some shit like that, and he was on the red carpet speaking about how he's back testing and he's ready to fight at the White House. But Dana seems more stern in not letting him today than I have ever seen him in regards to John Jones. I remember when he canceled that fight against Chael, Dana said he'll never headline again. Well, he headlined against me twice. We're supposed to be headlining events 5 times. He headlined against Gustafson, Cyril Gahn, and so many other people. This time he seems like he is not going to.
The difference this time around is John Jones isn't 28, 29, 30, even younger than that. John Jones is 37, going on 38. Regardless if he comes back and he's active or not, you're really only going to get what? If he fights twice a year, maybe you get 4 fights. Maybe he stays for 4 years. I doubt it, though, with his track record. And it's sad to say that about the guy who's supposed to be the GOAT of the sport is still, regardless of all the controversy, one of the most talented fighters I've ever seen compete in the octagon when he is motivated, when all this stupid shit outside the cage isn't happening, and when he's just focused on building his legacy. I said in my short, you should have went up to heavyweight years ago. You should have fought the likes of JDS, Cain Velasquez. You know, a lot of those guys were at the end of their prime, which John Jones loves, or nearing it, but those would have been legacy defining wins. He would have been moving up. He would have been beating former champions. I always wanted him versus Alistair Overeem. I hate that we're never gonna get that fight. It's and that's the legacy of John Jones, where everyone will say, "Man, among the most talented fighters we have ever seen." But da 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 da.
Back down and allow for him to be on his White House card. And if I'm being completely honest, I don't know that I agree. I think I would let him fight. I think if he wants to fight, I would let him fight because for as much as mixed martial arts is a global sport, and it's a sport that everybody loves and we support people from all around the world, at the end of the day, when we're fighting at the White House, you want American people that can win. At the end of the night, Noche UFC last week in San Antonio had six Mexican-born fighters. They won all 6 fights. They had 3 American fighters of Mexican descent, and they all won. It felt good for the people leaving the arena that night because the people that they went to support had all found success. Imagine if we're on the White House lawn and the Americans aren't winning fights. And that could happen because when the opening.
Again, this is a big thing. Building the fighters based on their country. Every other sport does it. You go down to the state level, they're representing the city. Why don't we still use this to our advantage and promote fights based on where people are. Go where the stars are. But again, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Unless, the UFC can find a way to fight in the Roman Coliseum, I don't see anything being bigger than this. And that would be a banger fight. That would be a killer fight. Anyways, you know, like I said, this has been the saga for 15 years, though.
In line for McGregor versus Chandler comes out, Chandler's going to be a pretty substantial underdog, as he should be. Even though Conor hasn't fought in forever, he will still be the favorite to beat Michael Chandler. But if you put John Jones against Tom Aspinall,
I Are we really gonna make Conor the favorite over Michael Chandler? I know Michael Chandler got dominated by Paddy Pinkwood, but he did better against Dustin Poirier. He's been up against Gaethje. He's been up against Oliveira. He's been up against majority of the top, lightweights. He fought Tony Ferguson on his decline. You know, when Conor fought Donald Cowboy Cerrone and he got the shoulder knockout, it was a brilliant performance, and it was right at the start of Cowboy Cerrone's major losing streak that he retired on, and it hurt me and a lot of others. But I remember that Stephen A. Smith famously said, "We haven't learned a damn thing about Conor McGregor." And as much hate as Stephen A. Smith got, and I'm not a Stephen A. Smith fan. I respect him. He makes a ton of money. He is tremendously good at what he does. Um, but again, I make fun of him, which he wants. Uh, but when he said we haven't learned a damn thing about Conor McGregor, and then we don't see Conor for what, a year, 2 years? If we It was true. Hindsight is 2020. And with Michael Chandler, he's nowhere near the star that Conor was, is, never will be. But he went in there against all of those guys at lightweight that were waiting around while Conor held up the division. Where Khabib and Islam have only been fighting once a year. It's tough. It really is. Because when Conor's motivated, he's one of the greatest fighters of all time.
for what everybody says that Tom Aspinall's the guys to beat him, when that line opens, I bet John Jones is still going to be the favorite. He'll still be favored to beat Tom Aspinall. He'll be the guy that's the world champion, or at least was the world champion before he vacated his title and retired. So he'll still be favored to win that fight. I believe that you got to let him fight, man. I think that you put some things in his contract that makes it very costly to not follow through. You understand? So if you put John Jones on the White House card, say something happens in the law and he has to be pulled off the card, $1 million. Say he just says he doesn't want to fight $1 million. Say he doesn't, say he gets injured, then it should be less, as long as the injury can be proven. If the injury is proven, charge him nothing. He's just a normal fighter that got hurt in
Uh, totally agree.
training camp. But you put these safeguards in
Fuck, man.
place.
Oh my god. I totally agree with DC right there. Take the NFL approach. You know, they're never gonna fully punish any of the star players. They're not gonna suspend Tyreek Hill for that long with everything going on around him. How he might become a Steeler. I don't know where he's gonna get traded to. Don't know when it's gonna happen. But it all goes back to these guys who get this money early, who make it early. Very few of them can hang on to the success, can truly understand what the platform they are on is, and honestly, all you gotta do is lock in during your career and then be controversial like Floyd Mayweather, right? Floyd Mayweather, the most controversial boxer ever. He got all of the big fights done. He went out and fought, all of these boxers. Canelo. He fought Conor. Conor at his peak, right? Floyd, above every fighter in any kind of martial arts, knows his value to a T. He knows the business side of it. And he knows that he needs to remain active. He needs to stay committed to the fight game. And you cannot make the character that you portray out in the public turn into the character you are in home. That is a major issue that I think 80% of the population has right now. Across the board, and every demographic, and every subject, every hobby, whatever it may be. I'm gonna leave the last little bit for you guys to watch on his video. But it's sad, man. It really is sad because I was never a Conor fan. I'm a Jones fan. Maybe you can relate in the opposite. Maybe you were a big Conor fan and you hated John Jones. I did hate Conor. I can't lie. But like the one thing that I think we all can agree on, it's so sad that the people with the most potential in the sport have had these demons, have thrown away their careers. I, you know, when you talk about the greatest of all time, the way I look at it is who is the guy who, when they get the call, they generate enough publicity one way or the other so that you care about their fight. You either want their opponent to knock the shit out of him or him to knock the shit out. And the tough part is that these people, they see, oh, I'm getting all this engagement, but I don't like what people are saying, so they only ramp it up, right? I don't know. That's, I don't know, man. It's sad. I totally agree with Daniel Cormier. And for Daniel Cormier, this is the last thing that I want to end on. When you lose in this game, when you lose in MMA, you are banking on whoever you lose to go on to have just as good, if not a better career than you did. And that's the position that Daniel Cormier is in. I think that's the part that hurts Daniel Cormier the most. Not that he lost the belt, not that he got head kicked, and those hurt obviously. I burped. But it's the fact that Daniel Cormier passed that torch to John Jones. And John Jones mocked. John Jones beat everybody he beat, apart from Anthony Johnson and a few others. Did it better, if not the same as Daniel Cormier. But this is where we're at. Let me know what you think down below. What do you think about John Jones coming back to the White House? What do you think about Daniel Cormier calling for his rival to get his shit together and come out and have the biggest opportunity of his life? Let me know what you think down below. I'm interested in what you have to say. Stay safe. God bless each and every one of you. Um, yeah.